Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is Top 10 Relatively Hidden Gems. Relatively is the key word over here because some of these games are actually not all that hidden. Some of these games are fairly popular, but these are all games that are outside the top 1,000 games on BGG, hence the relatively part. Or maybe I'll just call this video Top 10 Games That Deserve to Be in the Top 1,000. That also might be a good title. I'll figure that part out later, but that's what this video is. These are 10 games that are not in the top 1,000 on Board Game Geek that I think are fantastic games and should totally be in the top 1,000 games on BG. I'm definitely going to call it that. Forget the relatively hidden gems thing. That is a good concept, but I think the top 10 games that deserve to be in the top 1,000 is more accurate. And if my voice sounds a bit off, it is a bit off. Hopefully this is how bad it gets and it doesn't get any worse than this. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into this, starting from the furthest outside the top 1,000 all the way up to right just outside the top 1,000, starting specifically with our number 10, which is going to be SkyTeam. SkyTeam is currently an 8.2 on Board Game Geek. This game is currently 1,473, so this is the 1,473rd highest ranked game of all time as of now, which, by the way, is not that bad considering how many games are out there, but all that said, I do expect this one to rise a lot. In fact, I would be very surprised if this time next year, if this is not in the top 1,000, I'd be surprised. I think this game has the chops. I think this game has the accessibility. The only thing that might hold it back a bit is specifically it is 2-player co-op. That's all it is. It's not solo. It's not 3 players. It's not competitive. It is 2-player cooperative, which does put it in a slightly more limited genre, which is a factor of how games are ranked on BGG. I mean, this is an 8.2. That's a good rating. But SkyTeam is a 2-player cooperative game. You're both playing as the pilot and the co-pilot, and you're trying to land the plane. But to do so, you need to do a bunch of things first. You need to go ahead and make sure the wheels are out, the landing gear is out, the flaps are all taken care of, the various planes that are in the way are all slowly landed or moved out of the way. All these various things you need to do to ensure you can correctly and accurately land the plane. And then this is a scenario-driven game in the sense that you can keep adding various rules and modifiers to enhance the gameplay choices you have to make, to give you more things to consider. Are you possibly training new pilots? Are there ice conditions? What about the wind? There's a whole bunch of things that will be added to the game to continuously mix up the way you have to approach this 2-player cooperative game. You're going to roll dice, and then without communicating directly, assign those dice to various actions, having to in some way be in tangent with each other, to work with each other, to understand how things will play out, even though you can't specifically say, I'm going to play a 3, but you also have to play a 3. You can't have those conversations. You just have to trust your fellow pilot or co-pilot and work your way through it. SkyTeam is fantastic. This is Scorpion Mask. It was a recent release, a hit of Gen Con, and this one, again, if you're watching this video a year into the future, I'm assuming this has made its way into the top 1,000. Our number 9 is one that is definitely one more of those, more of a hidden gem category, and that's going to be Kingdom Rush over here. Kingdom Rush, A Rift in Time from Lucky Duck Games. This has Kingdom Rush. They also have Elemental Uprising, which should probably be arriving sometime shortly after this video. I don't know exactly how shortly, but within the next few months, hopefully, maybe. This video might not age well depending on how that goes. But Kingdom Rush Rift in Time is a cooperative tower defense game based on the app game that's, fairly popular app tower defense game, Kingdom Rush. And Lucky Duck Cook took this one and put it into a big box, miniatures, attacking your towers, trying to upgrade your towers as you work together to try to keep the hordes at bay. The game is hard. The game is punishing. This is currently a 7.4 on Board Game Geek. It is currently ranked 1,396, which again, still good, but I think it's far better than both of those numbers. I think it's better than the 7.4. I think it's better than the 1,396. I think this is a game that is very challenging. It is very hard. You do not have room for mistakes in this game. You have to work your way towards trying to play the right towers, to upgrade your towers, to move your heroes around the board. But it's got asymmetric heroes. It's got all these fun towers to go ahead and build. It's got various scenarios coming at you to keep the difficulty at you, to keep you pushing your way through this encounter, through this challenge. Kingdom Rush Rift in Time, to me, is an excellent cooperative and or solo tower defense tableau building game. There's a lot of fun things going on in it, and it's got cute, adorable little miniatures and little cards full of hordes of miniatures you have to go ahead and overtake. This one is a fun challenge. If you want a fun challenge, there's a lot going on here, and it's not one that has a lot of buzz, in my opinion. It's one that I think it's, decently enough known or respected, but like, I think this game should be talked about a whole lot more. I think it's absolutely fantastic. That's going to be Kingdom Rush Rift in Time from Lucky Duck Games. My number 7, my number 8 over here. Number 8 is one that I talk about to no end, and some games just bother me that they are not yet as, as high as I'd like them to be, and that's going to be Skulls of Sedlec, also a 7.4 at 1248. This is the 1248th highest game in BGG, and Skulls of Sedlec is fantastic. It is arguably my favorite button-shy game. This is a 2-player game that's going to be 18 cards, although you could add a ton of modular expansions to it, so you can make it 24 cards, or 30 cards, or 36 cards, or any variation of those. I think it comes in an additional 6 cards at a time, if not mistaken. There's a solo mode, which I have yet to play. I really should play through the solo mode. But this over here, Skulls of Sedlec, it's 2-player drafting cards and placing them into your own little structure in order to optimize the scoring around them. It's portable. It gives you challenging things to think through as far as how you're going to draft cards. It forces you to plan around knowing certain card types are coming out and how they'll fit into your little structure as you literally dig up bodies to rebury them according to your own personal criteria of how they should be buried. It's a little dark and morbid when you think about it, but as far as the game goes, it's a fun experience that is challenging and works really well. Once you add more cards to it as well, you can also even make it a 3-player game or a 4-player game as you add more expansion packs to this. But at its core, it's a 2-player drafting game of putting cards into your own little structure, and is so delightfully good. This is such... I think what this does in 18 cards is one of Button Shy's best games. I think it gives you a rewarding little puzzly experience of how to optimize cards fitting together, each one touching each other in certain ways to optimize the way they score. It's really well done. That's going to be Skulls of Sedlec. At number 7, we have Beast from Studio Midhall, which this box is heavy. It's got a lot going on here. But Beast from Studio Midhall, this is going to be coming in at a 7.7. It is ranked 1227. All these numbers at the time of filming, obviously. This one I can very well see cracking its way into the top 1,000, but I am curious how long that takes, at what point it does. I mean, 7.7 is good, but, it's not necessarily an 8.2 that will just take a little bit more numbers to get you there. But Beast over here, this is going to be a hidden movement game, which one player takes control of the Beast. And the Beast is an asymmetric character, because there's, like, a whole bunch of these beasts over here, all with their own different assortment of abilities that you're going to use to drive your objectives forward, which generally involve eating things and killing stuff and all those kinds of things. Meanwhile, the various hunters are wandering around the board trying to capture you. Again, asymmetric hunters with their own abilities. And in the game, every single round you are drafting cards, which I love. I love drafting, and this game gives you tough drafting. This game forces you to make hard decisions every single round. Hey, all these cards are great for me, but if I pass these cards, they might be good for the beast, and that's horrible. The beast might use these to get away, to track me down, to evade damage, to all these different things, and you have to think very carefully what you pass the beast, even as you don't even know where the beast is. And sure, he'll have to pop up here or there to actually accomplish his goals, and you'll be able to go ahead and pick up the trail once again if you've lost it. But there are so many tips and tricks available to all sides in this game. It is an absolutely fantastic hidden movement game that I think, the game gets a lot of love. I think it should get more love. It's just really well done as far as giving you drafting, powers and abilities, and hidden movement, just forcing players to just constantly, have a good time. Forcing players to have a good time. That's really a hard life to live. Coming in at number 6 over here, unfortunately I don't have anything here, so maybe I'll go ahead and throw a little screenshot over here, but over here we got 4 Northwood. I'll try to put it there if I remember. Alternatively, it'll just be empty fingers the whole time and it'll be super awkward. But 4 Northwood. 4 Northwood, unfortunately, my copy is currently lent out because it's so good that I've consistently been trying to show as many people as possible. In fact, I ordered a few more copies so that I could always have extra copies in stock while lending this one out, because 4 Northwood is so good. This is another one that I'd be very surprised if you're watching this video a year into the future. I'd be very surprised if this was not in the top 1,000 games of BGG. In fact, I think this should be in the top 500, but I don't know. This is going to be a word-of-mouth game that's consistently going to spread, in my opinion. We'll see. It's currently coming in at an 8.1 on Board Game Geek, ranked at 1,206, and 4 Northwood is a solo trick-taking game, which, again, does put in a slightly more limited genre. You have to be a solo player, and you have to not be scared off by the term trick-taking, which, there's a lot of game mechanics out there, but I've never really heard someone say, "Oh, I don't really like worker placement." I'm sure you exist. I'm sure it happens. But it's not something I constantly hear people say, versus trick-taking is one of those mechanics that I do hear people say, "Oh, I don't like trick-taking." So I think everything's a little different there, but ultimately, 4 Northwood is trick-taking to a degree, but I think, like the crew, it's also trick-taking that can pull people into trick-taking by taking some of the traditional edge off of it and forcing you to examine it from a new light. But so 4 Northwood gives you a puzzle of you have 8 different realms to go ahead and face and conquer and make allies with. Not known as conquering anyone. You're making friends with these various realms, and so you're wandering around the forest, but in order to do so, each realm has a different number of tricks you need to win in order to accomplish it. But it's very specific. So in one realm, you need 1 trick. In one realm, you need 7 tricks. In one realm, you need 4 tricks. You need to predict exactly how many tricks you're going to win and then go ahead and carry that out. But you do have allies at your disposal. You have a set of 4 core allies you always have available, and then you also have the various leaders of these realms you can make allies with and use them in the future as you make alliances with these realms. And you're not really playing a trick against another player, rather you're drawing a card blindly from the top of the deck and then trying to beat that card, which forces you to think through what's in the deck, what are the odds of something showing up, what options do I have if the odds don't go my way. There's a lot to think about for Northwood. It's a game that is in a box this small, again, there we go, this box that small. It's also a game that, literally plays on an airplane tray table if you want it, but can also splay out a little bit more and have a proper game on your table. There's even a little campaign booklet that gives you a set of challenges, unique challenges to go through in case you find the traditional game too boring. I don't know why you would, it's so ridiculously good. For Northwood, absolutely a hidden gem for me. A game that should be in the top 1,000, a game that people who have played it seem to love it, but a game that people who haven't played it, well, they should go ahead and find a copy and play it. That's the whole point of this. That's why I'm talking to you. That's why I'm talking to you. Coming in at number 5 over here, number 5 is going to be Circle the Wagons. Circle the Wagons is going to be from Buttonshy again. They made 2 appearances this one. This copy's so well worn that, in fact, this little wallet is falling apart from all the Far Wagons stuff, all the Circle the Wagon stuff I have stuffed in here. In fact, it looks like even the plastics. This is falling apart. Honestly, this is a sleeved Buttonshy game. One of the first times I got a Buttonshy game, and I thought the sleeving was a good idea. I need better storage for Buttonshy games because their wallets are not designed to hold all the expansions and the sleeves and still function as existing wallets. But, I mean, we're here, I guess. Circle the Wagons is another 2-player Buttonshy game. And this one over here, this is going to be coming in at a 7.1 on BGG, ranked 1197. And this one is, I'm surprised it's only a 7.1, but honestly, it's not even the lowest ranked game on this list. But Circle the Wagons, I think, again, is a delightful experience for 2 players in which you're going to lay out cards in a circle, and players are going to draft those cards, each of which have multiple terrains in them, and you're trying to slot the cards together to be able to maximize your score on the terrains, but also to maximize your score on the 3 central scoring cards that give you different variable scoring goals every single game. Similar to Sprawlopolis, if you've played it, all the cards represent a potential scoring goal, but the 3 cards that are the scoring goals define how you engage with the puzzle. Meanwhile, you're going to be drafting cards. You can choose any card you want, but all the cards you skip go to your opponent, which means you are frequently choosing between, I want that card, but that means you're going to get extra cards, so do I just take the closest card, which might be good enough, depending how I can arrange it into my own tableau. And then you're trying to figure out how to accomplish all these little tough decisions as far as balancing against the scoring goals, all while doing so in a game that takes, 20 minutes to play and gives you a rewarding, puzzly experience. Like Skulls of Sedlec, it forces you to try to prioritize your own scoring optimization. Unlike Skulls of Sedlec, it does so by forcing you to consider what you're giving to your opponents along the way. And that is going to be Circle the Wagons. Our number 4 pick over here is going to be On Tour. On Tour is going to be a 6.9 on Board Game Geek, 1177 as far as the ranking of it. And again, I'm surprised, like the other one I have on this list that's even lower is one that I can understand why it's ranked the way it is. But this one is 7.1. I think this deserves better. This is a simple flip and roll and write game in which you're basically going to be flipping some cards, rolling some dice, and then placing a number onto a map. You have a map over here, and there's different maps in it. This says USA and Europe. I think there are expansion maps. No, I know there are expansion maps as well, so you have more map options. But ultimately, you flip some cards, you roll some dice, you draw a number in a circle, and then across the course of the game, you're trying to set up the numbers so that they are in a sequence. So it doesn't have to be 34 to 35, but you can go 34 to 37 to 42, but then you can't go back down to 39. It has to go in an ascending sequence as you travel around the board. You're going to draw connecting lines from cities, trying to balance these connecting areas, trying to place certain key cities into the exact zone based on when they drew out to optimize your score, and you're just basically all dealing with the same hand of cards, but then who and how you play them on the board across the 25-30 minutes of this game is going to determine who has the most efficient tour that they have structured across the USA, Europe, or the other cities that I don't know because I don't have that over there. But yeah, that's going to be On Tour over here. A fantastic game. I think this is one of the better gateway roll and writes out there, the intro to roll and writes out there. It'll give you a lot to think about with a very small amount of not overly taxing on your mind or your, I don't know, not your mind. Your mind's the wrong term. It won't stress. I'm saying all the wrong words. It is not a mentally taxing game. There we go. It's not a mentally taxing game, and it plays quickly. It's a good intro to roll and writes, but also giving you enough decisions that it's also not just a, hey, just do the random thing and hope for the best. You are planning and playing in this game. My number 3 is going to be a big box one over here. This one I'm going to have to figure out exactly how I restructure the table around this. But number 3 is the Reckoners. The Reckoners from Brandon Sanderson from Northwood Games. This is a very, very enjoyable cooperative experience. Especially if you like the books. If you like the book series, or even honestly, if you like The Boys, like that Amazon TV show and all that stuff. If you like any of those, it's also a comic, I know. If you like any of those things, The Reckoners I think will very strongly appeal to you. But even if you don't care for any of them, The Reckoners is just a good cooperative game. You see, in the game, the basic idea, the premise of the game is you're fighting against superheroes, because superheroes have a lot of power, and with power comes corruption, and so these people are out of control. They do what they want because nobody stops them, because why would you? They're superheroes. And so unfortunately, their reign of terror exists. And it's up to you, the Reckoners, to go ahead and take them on and just take them down and keep the city safe. And to do that, you're going to have a bunch of city areas set up on the board. You're going to have your heroes who are wandering around the zones. Meanwhile, you have Steelheart himself wandering around trying to just blast everything, to summon more fighters to a side. Meanwhile, you have all these other superheroes that you have to deal with one at a time. But as you do so, you're slowly trying to research what their weaknesses are, take them down, and ultimately, once you are able to finally gather enough research to take down Steelheart, you'll go ahead and try that ultimate final battle. The whole entire time you're gathering various equipment to go ahead and power yourself up, because you need to do that in order to even have the remotest chance of winning. You need to power yourself up so quickly, because the game starts with everything plummeting so south downhill as fast as possible that you're like, I don't understand how we would ever win this game, until you get to a point where you're like, honestly, we started gathering enough equipment, and it does seem like we're getting more powerful. It does seem like maybe, just maybe, we have a chance of making this work. And then depending on how it goes, depending on if you work together successfully or not, depending on a whole bunch of things, you may indeed take down Steelheart in this game. Oh, by the way, it's ranked as a 7.7, and it's 1,076. We are down to that last 100 outside the top 1,000 games. That's going to be the Reckoners from Northwood Games and Brandon Sanderson. My number 2 is going to be a small box game. This is the lowest ranked game on this list, the lowest rated, I guess, but the as far as ranking, this one is going to be a 6.8, and it's going to be, well, there's 2 options here. There's Cockroach Poker and there's Cockroach Poker Royale. I'm going to bundle them together in this listing. We have Cockroach Poker at a 6.8 and 1,023, and we have Royal at 7.1 and 1,152. So depending on where you count these are, you know, somewhere in that ranking over there. But Cockroach Poker is a delightfully fun bluffing game of chaos, of party games. It's a party game. This is a game which you're going to have a bunch of critters on the table, and you're basically taking a card, placing it face down, and saying, this is a bat. And that's up to your opponent to try to call it or not, or even to just look at it. They can pick up the card and say, I don't know if I believe you, but I'm going to look at it. Oh, this is not a bat, this is a rat, and they pass it to the next player. Now, there's only 7 or 8 critters, depending on which version of the game you're playing as, but the goal of the game is to try to effectively create a chain of bluffs of lying, and then ultimately, at some point, somewhere along that chain, someone's going to either choose to call you out on it, or be called out on it, or whatever it is going to go ahead and say, I don't believe you, it's not a rat. And either they're right or you're right, but whoever is wrong takes the card and places it in front of them. Which also escalates the game, because the way you lose is by having 4 of the same critter in front of you. So at first it's completely random. It's a bat, it's a rat, it's a cockroach, it's a fly, who really cares? But as soon as you have 2 rats in front of you, the game has changed. Because now players are trying to get you to get the rat, because the first person who gets 4 of the same critter in front of them loses the game. And so as soon as you start developing critters, that's where the game's going to evolve from random lies that just come down to how well you trust your friends or don't, and I don't, by the way, to actually targeted lies that force you to engage in a degree of decision making of, how do you think I'm going to engage with this? Do you think I'm going to look at it, call it, pass it on? How do you think I would call it? You're forcing players to constantly engage in this bluffing game. To me, a long time ago, I had Coup as my favorite bluffing game that I had from my party of friends for when we go ahead and we're looking for something light at the end of the night to finish things off. Coup was a great game for years. Then that got replaced by Skull. Not Skulls or Sedlec, but Skull, which is another great bluffing game that worked for years. And both of those games have been replaced by Cockroach Poker, and this one has been our go-to bluffing end of nightcap game, whatever it is, for the past several years. That's Cockroach Poker, a fantastic game that I do highly recommend, which brings us to our last one, which is a slightly bigger box. And again, a game that definitely does not go into the, what's the word for it? Oh, you can see it already. Let's go ahead and put this in here. This is definitely not a hidden gem, so to speak. This is an 8.1 on BGG. This is 1,004 as far as ranking goes, which means you know it's going to be in the top 1,000 by the time you watch this video the next time. But this is Unsettled from Orange Nebula. Easily, I just want to make sure I'm saying that, easily my favorite game on this table over here. This is... It's Unsettled. It's fantastic. This over here should absolutely be in the top 1,000 games. This is... I'm just saying this is without getting into it. This is a cooperative and or solo puzzle in which you're playing as a bunch of people who are diving onto these various planets. And so every planet has its own planet box. In the game, I'm not going to pull it over here, you have your own individual planet boxes, these little squares, there's 2 in here, there's additional ones you can buy, and they all have multiple challenges as far as diving down to this planet and trying to engage with the specific rules and changes that this planet brings to the table, while trying to ultimately build the various structures that you need and engage with the various, discoveries you can find, all of which will slowly power up your own degree of knowledge around the planet and being able to give yourself more tools and options at your disposal to tackle what you need to tackle. And if you thought that thing was combat, no, there's not really a lot of combat here. There might be strange and threatening things. There's often environments you have to deal with, but there's a lot of puzzles you have to try to solve, and ultimately you need a lot of tools at your disposal to be able to successfully accomplish your goals before bad things happen, before you start to fall exhausted and need to be carried back to your ship in only what's a half victory in the game. Unsettled gives you charm, it gives you wit, it gives you humor, it gives you a degree of story, but not a campaign game. Separate disparate planets you can visit however you want, whatever order you want, with whatever group size of players that you want, although my personal favorites are 2 and 3 players. I still love this game solo. Half my games of this have been solo. It's a fantastic game. This is Unsettled from Orange Nebula, and it's an excellent space exploring experience that's really going to force you. This, to me, more so than I think any other game, if you want a game that feels like watching Star Trek, this game feels like Star Trek. There's not really a ton of combat, which I guess, Star Trek has more combat, but the idea of space exploration, the idea of pushing the boundaries of the final frontier, seeing what's out there, and choosing how to engage with what's out there, that is a big part of what Unsettled brings to the table. It's absolutely fantastic. That is going to be the #1 game on this list. Not ranked by me, but just whatever's closest to, the top 1,000. And that's what we have over here. These are top 10 games that should absolutely be in the top 1,000. By the time you're watching this video a year from now, I'm guessing at least 3 of these will be there. Unsettled, I lost track. Unsettled, Sky Team, and 4 Northwood. That's I can find on the table. That's why 4 Northwood, Unsettled, Sky Team, and 4 Northwood. I assume will be in the top 1,000 if you're watching this video a year into the future. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Appreciate you watching this, and as always, I hope you have a good one.